Hello and welcome back to the only show that discusses The Bad Batch for 3 full months leading up to its premiere, only to drop its review a week late. I'm Max.
I'm Luke's friend Matt.
And I am Luke.
This is Force for Thought! What the hell, man? That was so aggressive.
I hated it too.
I've known Matt longer, so
That's true.
that says for
barely.
something.
Weeks longer.
I couldn't say Max because you already went, so I had to say Luke. And also, I love you, so.
Yeah, we're friends.
Yeah.
What?
Well, yeah, I
Why is
couldn't.
that so aggressive?
What?
And you love him?
No, I felt bad saying I had
He
to
does.
default choose him.
Okay. Well, I feel like this is off to a weird start, but anyway, we're here today to discuss the Bad Batch Season 3 premiere, the first 3 episodes that came out, Confined, Paths Unknown, and Shadows of Tantus. And before we get kind of into the nitty-gritty of the different episodes, I just want some big picture overall thoughts. How did we like it? Did it live up to the hype so far?
I have two thoughts real quick. One is the other episodes. In the intro joke, we mentioned that we dropped this a week late. I don't think we are also going to be reviewing every single batch of episodes the day after.
Not every batch,
So
yeah.
it is a funny joke, but also get used to it, I guess, because we will be talking about it a little bit later on. And then the second thought was the first 3 episodes I absolutely loved. This is exactly what we were talking about, which Mandalorian did, or the first 2 seasons did. It is, and I know this is the first 3 episodes out of 16, so it's going to veer off course a little bit, and I assume maybe episode 4 will be a bit more of a Monster of the Week, kind of filler fun episode, but so far, these 3 episodes are so good, and they're just telling that one singular story of Omega and Crosshair getting out, and then it's so sad, which again we can get into deeper, but to see Hunter and Wrecker be the only 2 left in the Bad Batch, it is so down and depressing to see that. But I think seeing the stories told in a very concise, linear way has been great for each episode. And I watched the first episode with my wife, and I was like, "This is a kid's show, remember?" Like, it is so dark.
Especially for the first episode too, because the first episode had like no action to it. It was all just like plot and character development and everything. And I know this sounds weird because it's an animation, but like a lot of the cinematography still the same use of that word.
A lot of the directing was great to see what
but
they're
like
showing.
the shots and everything, and
Mhm.
like how you see like the blood samples that are being tested
Yes.
in that giant wheel, and like how you keep seeing it turn. Like
There's a pressure cooker, yeah.
Yeah, it was such cool imagery, and it was fantastic. But Luke,
High level, I thought episode 1 was good, kind of slow and boring. I thought episode 2 was fine. I would put it in probably the lower half of episodes overall. I did not love it that much. And I did love episode 3. So,
All right.
Episode 3 was definitely the best one
Yes.
of the 3. I love the first one. Like I said, there was no
too.
action, so I get why it seemed kind of slow, but I was all for it. I thought it was so good. It was I have in my notes the episode where we get a time jump.
Yes.
But they don't really address it. They say that line from the trailer that Omega's been waiting for us for a long time. So we don't really know how long they've been there for.
Well, we see Omega's counting go higher.
yes.
Yeah.
She's there for like a week, and then all of a sudden there's months go by, presumably, and then she also has a different haircut, and she looks a little older.
She does. She looks a little older. Her hair is different.
Yeah.
She's got a ponytail.
Yeah.
A quick shout out that she knows how to tally days properly and not like Ray, who just does single hash marks in perpetuity. That
Good
was really
point.
nice to see.
She was doing the crosses.
Mm-hmm. She was grouping them
That
in
way you can
fives.
count. You're
Yes.
5, 10, 15. Ray, what are you doing? Who do you have across?
When I was watching, I really liked that first episode a lot, like I said. And then the second episode came out, and it was much more action-packed. The second episode followed Hunter and Wrecker, and they're looking for Omega and how to get to her and everything, and I loved that as well. My only problem with that second episode was I liked it less after watching the third episode, because, spoiler alert, Crosshair and Omega managed to break out without any help of Hunter and Wrecker.
Right.
So I was like, well, their efforts really were just all for naught, really.
Yes.
It's true, but
you can
I
probably
also
skip that episode, except for those clones will probably come up again.
I also love that those clones got dropped off on the island that we were talking about. And
Pabu,
yes, thank you. I thought that was a great little hint. They didn't even mention it by name. And then also those clones, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, when in our Bad Batch season 2 review, it was that they come across a lot of these characters that they're able to help because they are just the common person, and they are doing good in the galaxy. And I feel like this is the perfect group of people. You know, they're helping another group of people out, and the vine monster was like, I'm like, okay, the vines are alive, don't touch the vines, I get it. But then at the very end of that episode, to have it be a massive Sarlacc-esque pit, I thought was an awesome reveal. To be like, oh my god, every single vine you're touching, when they're getting dragged away, anything that's getting dragged away is getting dragged towards that mouth, is a freaky idea.
Yeah.
And I love that villain because it was a huge reveal. I felt like rewatching it, I was like, oh no, that every little instance when he says watch the vines, yeah, seriously, watch the vines, like it is scary looking. And I love when it's getting pulled down and then they just sacrifice all the explosives they have on the ship. I really like that episode. It doesn't have much to do with the rest of the story, but the fact that it shows, like I said, the fact that it's just Hunter and Wrecker now. Echo is completely missing. He is gone. Tech is dead. Crosshair is in prison along with Omega. And to see these two characters having to solve what would be a normal mission for the Bad Batch to, I think, successfully infiltrate pretty quickly with all 5 of them.
It'd be routine.
Yes.
No fuss.
But with 2 of them, it's so much harder. I think that's what that episode's purpose is to be like, this is the state. Not only are they desperately looking for Omega and trying to save her, but they're also like, this is where we're at right now between the 2 of us. Like when they went on that bridge, which was also a great reveal when it drops them below, and the lady in their chair, who's voiced by Angelica Houston, which I was surprised about, when she hits the by the way, 2 buttons, really easy to get those mixed up. You can
I know, I
accidentally
had
kill
that
people.
same thought.
But the fact that like when they come on, I was like, oh, Echo's gonna come out of somewhere and help out. I was like, nope, he's just not there. He's
Yeah, I was
obviously
definitely
with Rex.
expecting Echo to be more involved with the Hunter and Wrecker-ness of it. Like, I get that it's best for Echo and where he's at, but narratively, like the creators of the show, I'm really surprised they would remove Echo when they've already removed Crosshair, they're removing Omega, Tech's dead.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I sound like we've talked about this before. Like, it's hard to make a show about the clones because they're not that diversified. They don't have much personality, but they make it work. And then the Bad Batch, it's hard to make a show about these, very broad archetypes, and they make it work. And now it's very hard to make a show about just 2 of them. And I'm sure they would make it work if Omega and Crosshair didn't escape and if Echo and Rex didn't come back. But it felt really awkward, for lack of a better word, to see just Hunter and Wrecker together.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I didn't like that episode very much.
Yeah.
It felt like something was missing, and I didn't like it.
So I know I said we'll discuss the episodes in depth one at a time, but I guess since we're already talking about it, we'll just start with episode 2. We're already here.
I'm so sorry.
But narratively, I think what the show does well, and what I'm guessing it's kind of getting at, is just the importance of how these clones need to stick together, because they come across these regs, as they call them, these basically kids, and at one point, as they're searching the ship and getting attacked by the vine monster, 2 of the regs are like aboard the Marauder, the Havoc Marauder, and they're debating just like stealing the ship and leaving them behind.
Yes.
And that's kind of like a struggle that these regs have, and then they ultimately decide like, no, we got to go and we got to like help our boys.
To be fair, it was before they get on the Marauder that they're talking about getting to the ship and leaving them behind, because I was kind of on their side when they were like, they're for sure screwed in there. We got to go get to their ship before the vines get there, and then we can escape. And I was like,
That's airtight.
that's
Yeah.
valid.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, so then they got on the ship and then they decided to help them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because that's
So
when
that still stands.
the last the guy, their friend is in there, and he like gives like their distress call
Yeah.
while they're
So
boarding it.
I like kind of the bigger storytelling that's going on for that, because I'm guessing that's going to be a big theme throughout this season. Obviously, it was like very strongly hinted at towards the I guess the second half of the last season, when they started to get more into like the clone rights and stuff like that too. So I think that's going to be a big theme. Maybe they try to, rally together. Maybe there's like a small revolution that kind of gets quashed at the end. Who knows? I'm very excited for where it's going to go. But
I know.
I think that's kind of the narratively what that episode was getting at. Because like I said, in episode 3, they didn't help Omega. She was able to get out.
It also does this thing where all Star Wars animated shows do, where the first season is a little bit lighter, the second season is a little darker, and then by the third season right now, we're full out dark. It is a black abyss for the Bad Batch.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So going back to the first episode now, like I said, when I'm just thinking, like, if I were a kid and I was watching the Bad Batch, like I would not like this episode at all.
No.
But like as an adult, I'm like, this is peak animation.
It's like the Fly episode from Breaking Bad, the bottle episode.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
that's
was
what it felt
directed
like.
by some random director. I forget who it was.
Yeah, never directed a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
But this is what it reminded me of, but it's obviously a much bigger space. But like, it is so dark and depressing, and it does that world building where in episode 1, it's showing you that basically ticking clock of the blood samples,
Mhm.
and the fact also the garbage can just like blows things up.
That was awesome.
I was like,
Yeah.
what the?
That was
It's like such a like a pretty tame like.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, so it's just completely destroyed.
Yeah, it's just gone now.
I had like a million thoughts about that as soon as I saw it, because narratively, if it didn't show it disintegrate or whatever,
Yes.
you would think in the back of your head like, oh, Tonwi's or Lama's, what's her name? The Kaminoan?
I would
not-
say the Kaminoan.
Lama
not-
Su.
Lama
Is it
Su, it is.
No, Lama Su's the prime minister.
Oh, we were just talking about Lama Su not that long ago.
Lama Say.
Nala
Nala
Say.
Say. Nala Say.
Jeez. All right, cut that.
Nah, the Kaminoan.
We got there.
What? Don't just call her the Kaminoan. When Nala Say was throwing it away, if it didn't like blow up, you'd think in the back of your head like, oh, she's saving it for something. Like, oh, and there's going to be 50 of them down there. But
Yep.
no, you know damn well that it's destroyed.
Yeah.
And that was a very clear visual cue. And I think
That's-
it was necessary if it did seem a bit over the top in the moment.
I wish I could
Mhm.
be there for the conversation when they were like discussing that, because like the script calls for like this blood sample to be destroyed by Nala Say, and they're like, how does she destroy a blood sample? Like, does she like pour it down a drain? She
Does
can't
she
just like
drink it?
you said, like you can't just like throw it in a garbage can, because then it's like, well, can't you just go back and get it?
Mhm.
So it's like, oh, we'll just put it in like this little container, and we'll just have like this little like puff and a zap and a lightning. I don't know how to describe it, but
No, you know,
Small
you know damn
explosion.
well it is destroyed.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
they did a good job of
It's gone.
explaining it. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but Max, what are your thoughts on the first episode? Sorry, to go further into it, because I know you said you're a huge fan.
Yeah, I loved it. I don't know. It was like a deep dive into just like the lore. It feels like they're going to be covering a lot of ground this season, and they just really hit the ground running as far as like
Yeah.
everything that they have to establish regarding the state of the Empire, the
Mhm.
state of the clones, and bridging that gap from a clone-filled republic to a stormtrooper-filled empire, basically.
They also set up. They have a lot of cool troopers. I think in the first 3 episodes of the batch, they have a lot of cool visuals, like you said, like the cinematography, I guess, or whatever, or like just even the drawings and the animation, the cartoons. But then also they do a fun thing where it's obviously a kid's cartoon. We all know that, blah blah blah. But like we know that Omega is helping the I forget what the creature is called, but she's helping this.
The Hound.
Yes, she's helping this creature out.
The name was Batcher, but I forget what it was called. It was,
Yes.
The name was just a
Yeah, I
hound.
was just gonna say Batcher, which is I didn't notice it until because I started
Mhm.
watching the premiere in my room, and it didn't have subtitles on for whatever reason. I didn't turn it on,
Mhm.
and I didn't notice until I started watching with subtitles the next day because I fell asleep that it's called Batcher because Omega talks with such a thick accent. And I was like, oh, what a good name.
Yeah.
That is a good name. And then she also makes the doll that she has on the ship. Like
Mhm.
those little things are so good. And then the fact that her twin, or not her twin, but her sister gives her the
Emery?
doll back and stuff. Yeah. And also she is she's going to play obviously a really big part in this season too, I assume. And they're going to where her loyalties lie and what's going to happen with her and everything too. But in episode 1, I love the way it ends. You think that she's hearing Batcher die by howling out. But then we cut to outside and we see him
Yeah, thank
thriving,
God.
kind of.
Mhm.
And so that's the thing is I love the fact that in that episode it's great because she thinks she did something great, and then Hemlock tells her she did something bad, and then we think that creature is dying,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden we cut to the outside, and it's like we as the audience know that Batcher is alive and presumably is going to play into episode 3. But I love that duality of in that moment the audience is relieved, but the character that we're rooting for is not, because
Yeah.
she still is left with that.
And the Hound is a great metaphor too for the clones and how the
Mhm.
Empire wants to use, or the Republic, and I guess now the Empire wants to use the clones, and that by showing it the humanity and kindness that Omega did, that in the Empire's eyes it is now ruined because it's been domesticated and
Yes.
it's lost its killer instinct, and it's not just a complete weapon anymore. That was a
Mhm.
great analogy for the clones in their current
Yeah.
state of the galaxy.
I also loved Crosshair in this episode says that he wouldn't think twice about going back for her if he escaped. Crosshair is great in this
He's
season.
lying, right? That
Oh,
was he's just trying to get her
Yes.
to leave him behind.
And this is before I forget, one of my favorite moments in the whole batch of the first episodes, and I don't want to jump to episode 3 quite yet, unless you want to. But when I love when he says, "Do you know Plan 76 or whatever?" and then Omega's like, "Oh, Tech had me memorize all of them," which is a great moment to recognize Tech, within these episodes. And I was in, Crosshair's like, "Of course he did." I was like, "Oh,
I don't want to be jumping all over the place, but
I know, I'm sorry.
Do you guys think that Tech is dead for good?
My leading theory is still what I said in our predictions or whatever the episode
Yeah.
was a couple weeks ago, that they're going to have his body and they're going to be experimenting on it. He will be dead, but it will be a plot point that they have to retrieve his body to, bury him or whatever, get closure on him as a person in their batch.
Again, this is a kid's show.
I can't.
Are you going to tell me the current tone of it would not
No,
imply that it could do that?
Everything you said is 1000% on brand for this season.
I cannot discount that. I think that is definitely a possibility. I think I'm more and more confident though that he has to be dead.
Yeah,
like you
agree.
said, like his body may be like a plot point or something, but like they did a good job of kind of like paying a little tribute to him. There was a line in the first episode where I think it was Wrecker told Hunter, "The last time we went into a mission without waiting for backup, not all of us made it out."
Oh, I don't
And
think
that
I caught
line,
that.
like, hit home. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh man, I don't know. And then they mention it later on. What does Omega say? She mentioned something about Tech.
Does she? Because I was just about to say when what you were saying when Crosshair asks if she knew Plan 76, and she said Tech made me memorize all of them, and he says, "Of course he did." Crosshair doesn't know Tech is dead at that moment, or even now.
Does
I-
he
after they've
not? I
escaped.
mean, she might have told him.
Yeah, I feel like Omega had
don't
to
know.
have told him.
I doubt it. I bet there's going to be a very emotional point when they meet up after these 3 episodes, and Crosshair finds out that he's dead. I don't think he knows right
That's
now.
interesting.
That is interesting. I didn't think about that, and I think that's what I'm thinking of too. The line where she mentions Tech. But yeah, you're right. She doesn't say anything about him dying.
There's no way. Also, they would have that reveal off screen.
That's a good point. But so much
I
time
think
has
it's
passed.
possible though. I mean, that could
Yeah.
explain partly of why Crosshair is so down on himself. Also, the other thing I want to talk about is his sickness. We don't know what's going on with him, but
His
his hands are
hand
getting
shakes.
shaky.
Yeah.
And he's a sharpshooter. That's like the worst thing he could get.
This motherfucker's dead though. Like it's one of those things
He's
where
gonna, he's gonna have a redemption arc.
Yes.
But he's
But like we all know that presumably he's gonna die and he has to die. I think we've talked about this before in our theories of season 3 of Bad Batch. But like, it's one of those. There's this play that I love called Oh Hello, and they always make fun of other plays. And then they're like, this is one of those things where like the Giuseppe sneezes into the washcloth or like he coughs, and then somebody asks if he's okay, and then he says yes I am, and he turns around and shows the audience his handkerchief is full of blood. And he's like, that man's not okay. That's exactly what's happening here. It's like we're setting up his death already. Like we all know it.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it is really going to be a great arc about where he is mentally and emotionally, and
Yeah.
like all he's ever been is a trooper, and Hunter and Tech when he was alive. But Echo and Wrecker and Omega, they can all adapt their skills for use in civilian life, and
Yeah.
he cannot.
No.
He is
Mm,
literally only good at being a soldier.
It's a good
that's
point.
true. Yeah, I didn't even think about
Or
that.
paintball instructor.
Well,
Yeah.
That is a niche.
You could go that route.
All right. Does anyone else have anything else to say about episode 1? I really just want to get to episode 3 because I feel like that. I mean, episode 1 goes into episode 3 so nicely.
Yeah.
and that's
There was
where-
one part of episode 1 that
everything
stuck out
happens.
to me. In the beginning, we saw it in the trailer when Omega and Crosshair pass each other in the hallway.
Yeah.
Omega looks at Crosshair and he's like looking really sad. But then the next time it happens, Crosshair looks at Omega and she's looking really sad.
Yep.
And it's obviously not like a star-crossed lovers thing, but it just
The duality.
struck me. It's like, oh man, they're right there in the same place, and yet they're so far apart.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Well,
Episode
let's-
3, baby.
Let's talk about episode 3. Holy cow.
Yeah, the Emperor was so creepy.
Yeah.
And I love, Project Necromancer, and which is such a classic Star Wars name for a project to be happening. And then also
It's already
like,
in The Mandalorian. They've already name
oh
dropped
yes.
it.
And
I
so
was
then-
about to say that. So in Bad Batch season 3, we have Hemlock, who's kind of controlling or in charge of this operation.
And pushing to
Project
get a-
Necromancer.
pushing to get a promotion.
Yeah, which we don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
they know that they want Omega, who presumably has a very high M count, which
Yeah.
again is the same kind of verbiage that they use in Mandalorian when referring to Grogu.
Yeah.
Presumably, she is force sensitive and has midichlorians and all
Yeah.
that.
I think she's not necessarily force sensitive, but her blood can transmit M counts safely. I don't think it was necessarily that she has a high M count. It was that she could be used to replicate M count clones.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's very.
Which it may
very
very well be the
nuanced, though,
same.
but
it was-
It might be
yeah.
splitting hairs, but I don't think it's confirmed that she has a high M count.
But I
at this
do
point.
want to talk about Project Necromancer though in Mandalorian because it is mentioned very briefly during
Mhm.
the council of the Shadow Council or whatever they were called, where they say that Thrawn's return will herald in a new era of the Imperial military and will give Commandant Hux enough time to deliver on
Mhm.
Project Necromancer. So, going back to our theories episode where we talked about what we predict is happening, I think we are correct in that all signs are pointing to the Empire or the Emperor wants to clone himself as like a final contingency leading into the Rise
Yeah.
of Skywalker.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, I'd say
Do
that
you
is
think they would
definitely confirmed
bring
at this point.
Tech back to life, and he's the dummy that they're testing
He's the
this on?
first Palpatine clone that
Like not
What do you mean?
even Palpatine clone, but if Palpatine, they're trying to revive people from the dead. If Palpatine's corpse is like revived, which is what he is in Rise of Skywalker, would they try to test that on Tech?
I don't think that is
Yeah.
his corpse though that's revived. I think it's a clone.
right.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not his physical body from Return of the Jedi.
But to
Is
Luke's
it-
point earlier, I think that there is a chance that Tech's body is one of the subjects that's being operated on.
Yeah.
Or not even
Hmm.
Tech's body, maybe similar to exactly what happens with Palpatine, maybe
Yeah.
a new Tech clone body
Yeah.
gets created that is different than the Tech that we knew that died.
Oh, man, it'll be
I wouldn't
interesting.
be surprised if they went that route. Oh, that would suck.
Yeah.
That would be so sad for our boys.
Yeah.
Because then it's like Crosshair's my favorite member of the Bad Batch, and we just got him back to the team, and now it's like Tech was my second favorite. Now he's going to the other side.
Yeah, that would be tough.
Man, it'll be good.
That is
Anyway,
cool.
sorry, not to distract too much.
No, but yeah, that was a big thing, Project Necromancer, and so I'm very excited for that and to find out more. I think is Hemlock going to be the big bad? I mean, we know what happens
Mhm.
in this Imperial era, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the clones aren't going to come back; they're not a major part of the rebellion.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, I don't think it's going to be a happy ending for the clones. But maybe they take Hemlock down, and that's when Hux takes over. Who knows?
I was gonna say I would love to be able to see Hemlock almost because he's almost too good of a villain to waste and just come in at the very end of season 2 and die in season 3 of Bad Batch. But all signs do lead to him also presumably dying, and also we do need somebody to die on the bad guy side in order for the Bad Batch to be at least a semi-happy ending. So it has to be Hemlock. With that being
definitely
said,
won't be Palpatine.
no, definitely will not be him.
Unless the Palpatine we all thought we knew was also a clone.
Oh.
That would be a twist.
Yes, it would. And to do it in the Bad Batch of all shows would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, this episode also just ruled. I feel bad for the Kaminoan, sorry. She's literally walking next to the Emperor as well. And this, something that's stuck out to me, I wanted to mention this when I was watching it by myself, but like when the Emperor gets off the shuttle, there's so many stormtroopers just in a line waiting. And in that one moment, I'm like, it is an insane amount of setup for him just to walk through. Like, that's how much power he has. He doesn't even care with anybody else. Like, I know that's a very obvious statement, but like in that moment, for some reason, just hit me out of all of Star Wars. Everyone's just standing around for him to walk by. Like, man, there was like it is a huge deal, and for them to secure the future, I think is even a bigger deal for obviously for him. So to see what they're gonna. Again, this is a breadcrumb, I think, that's not going to be completely resolved, obviously, in Bad Batch. It's obviously going to, it feels like, lead into a bit of Ahsoka Season 2 and Thrawn's plan, too. It's odd.
I think I disagree that it'll be, well, I don't know. I have so many thoughts about everything you just said. Okay.
Break it down, LT.
The standing guard or whatever, saluting whatever the Imperial format of that is for
Yeah.
Palpatine. There's a really cool moment in Lost Stars book.
It's a great
where-
book.
Did you read it? When
I did.
Sienna Ree, and she gets to be present when
Mhm.
Palpatine is doing his walkthrough at the second Death Star in Return of the Jedi, and she gets to be like in the crowd, and it's such a big honor, and she's so excited. So there is a lot of fun stuff to explore with that, and the Imperial military complex and all of the
Mhm.
whatever nuances with that. As for the stuff with cloning Palpatine, I think it's pretty obvious that it's all just setting up the stuff that gets paid off in The Rise of Skywalker, and that's
Sure.
where they're going. This is the beginning of it. I am really worried for Omega and the part that she's going to play in it, because not only do we know that the clones lose the fight overall, they're not there in the original trilogy era, and they get, replaced by the TK Stormtroopers, and it's not going to be good. But also, we know that Palpatine is relatively successfully cloned,
Yeah.
and I think they're definitely going to get Omega to be a part of that. And at the current stage that we are right now, after episode 3, Omega and Crosshair got away. Hemlock knows that Omega's the key to
Yeah.
the cloning succeeding, and he has the full resources of the Empire.
Yeah.
There is nowhere in the world Omega can hide. I am really worried, but there's also
It's
like the
true.
meta point. There's no way that Omega's going to die. But there's nowhere she could possibly hide.
But Hemlock knows that, though. So
Yeah.
who else knows other than Hemlock? I think if they kill off Hemlock,
Oh.
Omega might be able to live
And then show up in
successfully
the
as
New
a
Republic
pilot or
movie.
something.
I also feel like Omega is a character that we will see in live action at some point, older, so they can, they can cast somebody that looks completely whatever. It doesn't have to, adhere to the
That'd be
animation.
cool.
And I
would love
almost,
that.
I almost feel like they could do the same thing with Hemlock if he doesn't die fully. If it's aged up 20 years, all of a sudden you can cast whoever,
Mhm.
and it'll look completely different. So I feel like Omega for sure will be in live action. I feel like I can see her coming to rescue Grogu or impart knowledge or something, because they both are going through the same thing, presumably with the M count. So
Mm.
I feel like that could come in to play at some point further down the line.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that. So if they're kind of being pursued for the same reason,
Yeah.
like if there's significance to the M count,
Yes.
why are they pursuing Grogu so much instead of Omega still?
Yeah. So there's a
Unless they
disconnect.
they either don't know about Omega or
Yeah.
Omega's dead.
And I don't think she's dead. Right? I mean, I don't think they're going to kill Omega.
I don't think they would kill off Omega. No.
No. So I feel like
I think they're gonna. I mean, like we said, from a storytelling perspective, like they have to have like some villain die for like some sort of happy ending for the clones, even if ultimately they don't get a happy
Yeah.
ending.
And
I think that's gonna be Hemlock.
or presumably, what's her name? Again, can't think of her sister's name.
Emery.
Emery.
I don't
Can-
think she's completely evil though.
No, I was just saying
No.
maybe she's going to turn and understand that, and then be able to cover it up or something. Right? She'll be able to disregard files. She'll be able to understand.
That would be a good arc for her.
Yeah.
Maybe Hemlock dies, and then all of his knowledge is passed on to Emery, but Emery doesn't say anything about Omega, and that's kind of how she gets off.
Exactly.
That would be cool.
So Emery gets an arc. Hemlock is dead, and Omega lives happily ever after.
Yeah. And the Bad Batch presumably
There
are
you
all
go.
dead too.
All right. Well, you no longer need to watch the Bad Batch. we unlocked the code.
That is a good code though. I like that. I like everything we just said.
Interesting. Well,
Um,
I'm very excited in a month and a half when we're like, well, we were wrong.
Yeah,
Did
I
not
No, I'm
age well.
thinking
That
we
turns
should
out-
talk about all of our theories going into season 3 and whether or not they were right or wrong. I know we all kind of said that we didn't think Crosshair and Omega would escape early at all, and they're already out. Matt, you thought that Crosshair wouldn't make it out at all.
That's true. I thought they were going to do a thing where the Bad Batch get there and he is able to sacrifice himself in order for Omega to leave. But I'm
Which
glad
it seemed like they were about to do for a second. I thought
Yeah.
at the end of episode 3 that might happen because Omega was getting on that ship
Mhm.
and Crosshair was like holding them back at bay for a
Yeah.
second. And then
Yep.
she was able, or no, am I getting my episodes mixed up? Where she dropped the tow cable or something?
No, that's episode 3.
Was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can remember because everything interesting happened in episode 3.
No, there were interesting things that happened
It's
in
all
2.
the build
I
up.
didn't dislike
It
episode
was just
1, but
wasn't
yes, it was all of a
relevant to the
build-up.
story. So I did think that was going to
Yeah.
happen for a second, but with Crosshair being my favorite member of the Bad Batch, I'm very excited that he got out of there.
I loved when she repelled up and she straight up shot the guy in the head, by the way.
She stunned him.
Yes, but she just. I know she stunned him, but she just pulled that gun up to his head and did it. I was like,
Yeah,
whoa,
that's
that guy's going to have a
badass.
huge headache. But it was just so violent, like so quick. I was like, whoa.
Matt's always been an Imperial sympathizer.
And then I was just
Think of a
surprised.
headache.
And then I love when Crosshair goes up to the pilot, the cockpit, and then opens the hatch and throws the body out. It's like, man, Crosshair's just so cool. And I also love that the Hound, I keep not getting anything straight this episode,
Batcher.
Batcher is able to hop in with them as well.
I was shocked that Batcher got an escape also.
Yep.
I was
glad.
surprised by that, yeah.
I was so happy,
I'm
though.
glad.
I was like,
I like him. I like dogs.
yeah, I'm interested in what's going to happen with that as well. I can also see at the very end, not to get too off track, but I can also maybe go and see Omega living on an island at the end of the show. That's where Hunter drops her off. We already have an established place that'd be a great place for her to grow up. So I could see her living off the map,
I think
and
that
growing up there.
island is going to be obliterated by the end of this season. I think it'll be
You think so?
No, it's like, it's like a
uninhabitable.
sanctuary. That's,
It is like a sanctuary. It's their only safe place in the galaxy. They sent those clones there. I think there's going to be a couple of other allies there.
That's
And I
gonna be
think the
so
Empire's going to
disappointing
show up and just wipe it off the
Ugh.
face of the.
throughout this entire last season, Hunter and Wrecker just keep recommending this place to every clone they find, and then at the very end, they just nuke it.
Yeah, I think that might be what we're
Oh,
building
that
to.
does tie up a lot of loose ends pretty nicely, unfortunately. But I hope that doesn't happen. Oh
Same.
man, that is. I don't know
I don't
because
want to
you,
bum you out too much. That's just my.
but you
thought.
know it's not going to end well. Like
For
Ah.
the Bad Batch, I can see it ending well for everyone else, though. I think the Bad Batch are going to be.
I mean, clones don't get rights. I mean, they're like I said, like they're
Yeah.
not like soldiers in the rebellion at all.
No.
Like you don't see any clones.
And they definitely would be if they survived.
that's true.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Something else I liked was when they're escaping in episode 3. It actually stressed me out. Like my heart was like pounding when the laser grids were going up when they're running through the tunnel.
I thought they were going to get
Yeah.
separated.
Yeah, so did I. I was like, "Whoa, my god, that was so quick!" Even though it was a
Mhm.
quick moment, it like actually did like make my heart race. I was like, "Oh, geez." And I love that idea of them escaping. I love when Hunter was like, "Well, when Crosshair was like, you picked a terrible day to escape." The Emperor's on
Yeah.
the island, in in there in Tantus.
That reminds me of some other sequence. Was it from Ahsoka? I think it was in Ahsoka when they're when Thrawn is blasting all the Star Destroyer down on
Yeah.
them and they're taking the Howlers and they're trying to get into the base and someone makes it in at the last second. It's like that's such a standard action movie sequence.
Yeah,
And if you just do it right, it gets me
It-
every time
it gets you.
anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how those laser grids were
yes,
too.
it did.
And it also reminded me of obviously the Phantom Menace where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon got separated. And I always wonder because Darth Maul kind of like tests it when
Yeah.
he like hits it with his blade and it stops a lightsaber. What happens if you just run full steam into that thing?
Just
Right. Are you disintegrated?
evaporated.
Yeah, is that just like a wall of lightsaber?
I
Can
don't
be
know.
good.
I imagine you bounce off.
You
Yeah.
bounce
I
off?
imagine it's more like a wall.
I
than
think that's
a
if you're playing
lightsaber.
in a video game. I think
I might
if-
have bounced off in a video game before. I don't know.
I think if that's real, you just like disintegrate into it.
That is such a safety hazard. This isn't
That's
a
the point
war-
of it, though. They're clearly trying to
Ooh.
keep people out.
You
I
can
don't
keep
know.
people out with a wall just as well as with a lightsaber wall.
That's true. And if you're trying to protect those beasts, right, those creatures within there, I don't think they're going to disintegrate them. There's a lot of different walls set
Yeah,
up.
that too. I was thinking about the Duel of the Fates more so than the
Hmm.
Batcher or the Hound, whatever, kennel.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely in the Hound kennel, they don't want to accidentally disintegrate all of their hounds.
You're worrying too much about safety precautions in a galaxy where they just have bottomless pits open to people at almost
no
all
handrails.
times. Yeah.
It's true.
I mean, this isn't even just a safety rate. This is an active weapon that you would be putting out in
Yeah.
terms just for the purpose of corralling people away from you.
Man, I love these 3 episodes, though. I had a blast watching them.
Episode 2, one other thing I wanted to talk about, Mox, the older clone Reg, was voiced by Daniel Logan, who played Boba Fett in
Was
Attack
it?
of the Clones.
It was, yes,
Oh,
I
didn't
saw
know
that.
That's nice.
That's exciting. Might be hinting at a Boba Fett appearance later this season.
Which
I
we
hope-
talked about in our predictions.
Yes, we did.
thought we might see a
Cad
Boba Fett.
Bane.
I think.
Which I was just rewatching the Mandalorian season 2, and it was, I forget what episode, but they were breaking into that base with Migs Mayfield and Mando, and Mando was like seeing who can go in there, and everyone else was like, "Oh, I can't do it. The Empire knows who I am." And then he said Fett, and Boba Fett said, "Let's just say they'll recognize my face."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Oh, that's a funny line," but it really also calls into question like what is like the understanding of clones during this time, and like what kind of trouble has Boba Fett gotten into throughout these years? Like if this ends with like basically like a mass genocide of clones and Boba Fett has worked for the Empire before, does he just constantly keep his helmet on at all times so that people don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would if I was him.
I mean, I don't know. I just thought that was like really interesting. Like
Django really set him up for failure in life.
like it because it's so far removed too. Like what is Mandalorian? That's like 9 years after Return of the Jedi? 5. Like 5 years after Return of the Jedi, if an Imperial sees a clone, what's the relationship there? Like, is that like a presumed enemy of the Empire?
Yeah, that would be like 30 years after the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
That's pretty. That's long enough that you probably wouldn't even recognize him, especially with the rapid aging of the clones.
Well, his
Yeah.
his didn't have or was he? No, he didn't.
Boba didn't have
aging, did
rapid
he?
No.
aging, but I'm saying no other clone still looks like him because every other clone looks, whatever, 25 years older than him.
Are all the clones potentially dead by that point?
I would think so, but Rex is still alive. But he's got to be pushing
That's true.
dead by old.
I know I'm getting like way far off now, and I should probably save this for a force for thought. But Jango Fett asked for an unaltered clone for himself as like part of his payment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he took care of a newborn, or do you think he was like, give me an unaltered clone starting at like 6?
That's interesting. I do not see him being a good single dad to a newborn.
With his lineup, he's also out of town all the time for work.
All the
That-
time.
It's a lot of effort. I mean, I guess he could definitely afford nursery droids and stuff, so he could make it work. But why would you bother with the hassle? There's no way he wants an unaltered clone for the joy of raising a child. He
Right.
wants
Yeah.
to continue his legacy. Yeah, I bet he had them make him at 8 years old,
Yeah.
9 years old. I mean, he's 9 in the movie.
So do you
I
think
bet
he
probably
told-
8 or 7?
Do you think they can stop the age progression? Like he was like, just cut it off at 5, or do you think he was like, you raise him unaltered for 5 years and then give him to me?
No, I think he was like 5-year-old. 5 years
Yeah,
old. There
I
you
think
go.
they created a 5-year-old.
No, they start as babies.
They do start
You
as
see 'em in the
babies.
little
That is
tubes. That's true.
interesting. Those 5 years will really affect you. I mean, how could he? Well, they could just be unaltered in terms of genetic rapid aging, and still grow up with all the other clone troopers for 5 years until giving them to Jango Fett.
Yeah.
I bet that's what they did.
Yeah, I think that's sound.
We figured it out.
It's good you didn't save that for a force for thought too, because we wrapped that up.
Yeah, tied a little nice bow on that one. All right. Anyway, back to Bad Batch. So, kind of final thoughts. What are we looking forward to? I guess we already kind of talked about these, but what are we looking forward to? What predictions do we have? How are you guys feeling?
I think Pabu's gonna get destroyed. I do think we might have, because I saw a YouTube video, I think it was Star Wars Explained, mentioned that the clones that we see in episode 2 were in season 1 briefly. And those Deveronians that we see in the beginning of episode 2 were also in season 1, which I don't remember that at all, but apparently we see the Pike take the horn off of that Deveronian. That's why Hunter and Wrecker knew how to find him.
That is such a good callback.
That is.
I don't know that though. I didn't remember that at all.
I didn't remember it either, but
Smart.
we are looking good for having all the minor characters like that brought back for season 3, similar to Avatar: The Last Airbender did that really well, where every character you meet throughout the series is then brought back at the end in a really satisfying way for the big battle against the Fire Nation in that show. But I could see all the allies they've made coming back at the end for one big fight that they will inevitably lose. But they'll win some small moral victory
Yeah.
before being wiped out.
They'll kill Hemlock and they'll be able to provide a life for Omega.
That's the goal.
There's no way
That's
all
their
the Batch
mission.
is gonna die though. Wrecker's gonna live.
I don't know.
I think Echo will live. No, Echo won't live. I think Wrecker and Hunter are gonna live.
I think I love the last I don't know, the storyline throughout the show so far, these batch of episodes is the mission's not over yet. And so once the mission is over, they're able to die, I almost feel like, is what they're allowing themselves to do. And so I think you're right though. Omega will have a life after them, and Hemlock will be dead, so then she is no longer in danger. And I think then the mission is over and they can kind of go off peacefully and die, or not even, maybe it's left more in the air. Maybe if just say Hunter and Echo are left, they go their separate ways to live their lives and never to be with Omega again, so that she is able to live a successful life, because as long as they're around her, she's in danger. So I think that's one of those things that's going to happen too. And so I'm really looking forward to nothing at the same time as I am looking forward to everything, to seeing how it pans out. But I was blown away by these first 3 episodes, so I'm super excited to see what the rest of the show has to offer. With the remaining 13 episodes.
I agree. I thought these first 3 episodes were amazing.
Yeah.
Blew me out of the water. I'm very excited to see what happens. I can't imagine a world where Hunter and Wrecker survive, though.
Yeah.
I think it's so random. I think.
I
I mean, the writers
I don't
obviously know, but it can go any direction and be just
the
as
questions
emotionally
of like,
effective.
Rex is still out there. Like, how come they never helped Rex with anything?
The mission's
know.
over. They got one mission left.
I mean, obviously, this is a question every single time a new Star Wars anything is made that people have, and they always address it. So,
Yeah, they'll make it work.
yeah, they'll make it
No
work.
matter
But
what.
I'm just, I'm curious, and I'm very excited.
So the only question really is what would be most emotionally effective for this story, whose death and whose survival, and it could be any one of them would be, I think, just as successful at telling a great story if one of them died or the other or any of them survived or not.
And the fact they already killed off Tech too just tells me that they're not afraid.
do you think they're gonna fake their deaths so Omega at least can like never not go looking for them? Like everyone else, like the ending shot will be them actually still alive. Like I don't. That's the only thing I can see them doing is the fact that because I didn't think Omega will never stop wanting to be with them unless they are dead, and so I feel like there could be that fact of them. It looks like they died, and they know that she's gonna be okay, so they're never gonna reveal herself.
But for some reason, I can see that going the other way, where the Empire will never stop hunting Omega,
Mhm.
and Omega wants Hunter and Wrecker to be free. So she's like, they'll never be free unless I'm dead. So she fakes her death, and then maybe like you said, like at the end, that's the thing. Like she sees them like kind of off, like doing missions or something on their own, and she's like happy knowing that they can be safe without her.
That's what I was going to say, because the Empire is not tracking or hunting the Bad Batch at all. They just care about Omega, and if Omega was never in the picture, they would have been happy being mercenaries for the rest of their lives. And it's Omega that's the problem.
Interesting. I don't know.
But
I still
again-
feel like that's her mission.
Again, this is a kid show. This
Yeah.
is animated, so we're like,
You can't kill Omega.
I don't know how deep they're gonna go with this, but
There's no way they'll kill
they
Omega.
could
No.
do it. I don't know. All right. Well, let us know what you think. Let us know what your predictions are, and let us know what you thought of the first 3 episodes. You can reach us across social media at Force for Thought, and you can email us at forceforthought@gmail.com.
And speaking of Force for Thought,
Does anyone have a Force
I have
for
Force
Thought?
for Thought, yeah.
Excellent.
Wow.
Droidicas. You know them, you love them, roly-polies with the shields.
Mhm.
Destroyers.
How do you pronounce it?
Droidica.
I would say the same thing.
Say it.
Droidica?
Where are the Droidicas?
That's a good quote, but the way he says it is, where are those droidicas? And
Droidicas.
the reason it stands out is because I was playing Star Wars Battlefront 2, the 2017 version, and I was playing with a friend, and he calls them droidecas. And as soon as he
Who
said
says
it,
that?
a friend of mine.
Okay. Correct him. That's incorrect.
I did correct him. I was like, it's not droideca, it's droidica. And he was like, oh, really? How do you know? And I was like, well, is it only ever said by Newt Gunray or Rune Hako in that one scene? Because they have thick Japanese accents.
No, I
Are
think
we
it's-
all saying it in a thick Japanese accent?
I think it's said in the 2nd episode of season 2 of Bad Batch, the one where they
Ooh.
where Crosshair, it's the Crosshair episode with Cody, and they go in that separatist stronghold and they have droids there. One of them says something about droidicas.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. All
This
right,
is
this
a-
was a bad Force for Thought, too, because we wrapped it up.
No, this
I-
is a great Force for Thought, and also about timing. We're talking about Bad Batch.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, that is good timing. Now, but now I'm paranoid though. Now I'm like, am I filling in gaps that aren't actually there? Because there's definitely droidicas in that episode because they kill them in one of the coolest ways possible, where they like shoot a battle droid and then they stick that battle droid with a grenade and it like
Yes.
slowly falls into the bubble and it blows up.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty sure when they arrive, someone says droidicas.
Okay, that would make me feel better, because before then, and that is
But if they did,
very
it would have been with an
recent.
accent as well.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Because
And now
that-
I got to rewatch it and
that
really
Newt Gunray
analyze that.
voice is a very famous Japanese, almost satire accent,
Yeah.
and he just says it like droidicas, and it's like, you don't say it like that every time, but we do say droidicas. And are we just incorrect?
Man.
But
a good question.
even if we are incorrect, I don't think it's droideca.
Yeah, no, that you can correct. You've played video games long. This is like Overwatch when people would play as Symmetra and they would always talk about her turrets. How many people refer to it as turrets, and we're like, where are you getting that N from? The word is just turret.
I know you haven't played Overwatch in a while, Max, but it has been 7 years that I've been dealing with that problem.
People
And
are
it
still
is-
calling them
It
turrets.
has never gone away. Yes. It's unbelievable.
I don't know why people say that.
Me
That's not the
neither.
word.
That's infuriating.
And a
Mhm.
turret is not like a weird word. Like
Turrets?
it's a word. That's
Yeah, the entire Overwatch community says it with an N for absolutely no reason.
Oh, frustrating. I'm so sorry for you guys.
Thank you. It's something I live with.
no one understands your struggles, Luke.
I know. I have such a hard life and no sympathy.
All right. Well, if you have sympathy for Luke, let us know. You can reach out to us across social media at Force for Thought, or you can email us at forceforthought@gmail.com.
See you, Sammy.